Welcome to Soul Rising. We're your hosts, Amy and Erin. We're two everyday mediums who are passionate about taking the woo-woo out of spirituality and bringing it down to earth. So put the kettle on, grab a chair, and join us.
Hey
Hi.
everyone.
Hello. We hope you guys are doing well.
Yeah, happy midweek. This is
Yeah.
episode 30 of
30.
Soul Rising.
Yeah. I guess when this comes out, it'll be end of the week.
It will be weekend, but for us it's midweek.
For us, it's midweek. Maybe it will also feel like midweek for some folks.
Maybe.
Maybe
I don't
some
know,
people are looking forward to something. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, but right before we started recording, Erin and I were saying, does it not feel like Friday today? Like it feels like the weekend should be here.
Yeah, it does. It definitely feels like Friday. We record usually on Thursday. I mean, it's shifted, and bless Amy because of my up and down schedule and your flexibility. But
That's okay.
we usually record on a Thursday, and so it's Thursday today, but it feels like Friday. It feels like a Friday.
Absolutely.
I actually would like it to be Friday. I would really appreciate that if the universe could just sort of fast forward a little bit.
Yeah, for
Anyways.
sure. So today we decided we were kind of feeling nudged to talk a little bit about spiritual awakening and what does that mean? And also maybe a little bit through the lens of how that can affect your relationships, not just with others, but with self. A lot of changes take part.
When you have the spiritual awakening, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Within and then outer world, I feel like you were saying too.
So I was looking at an article here and they quote Psychology Today, and they talk about what the term spiritual awakening kind of means as a term. So I'm going to give that to you, but it also, I feel like, can mean different things to different people and affect people differently. So it says, spiritual awakenings occur when we see glimpses of the much bigger picture around us and find humility in the moment. We can become aware that humility is not thinking less of oneself, but rather thinking of oneself less, and that we are worthy of self-compassion. Then they go on to say, it's a slow, gradual process that happens when a person understands that their existence goes beyond the confines of the I or the ego.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that description?
I would. Yeah. It like you almost do a shedding, right? Because I feel like, and I think this is true maybe with like any new perspective or learning anything that's new for you, right? No matter what area that you sort of have a new perspective on that topic or whatever it is that you're learning about, right? And then you sort of do like a shedding, you sort of do like a letting go of, you do a lot of unlearning.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like for me, I've heard the term dark night of the soul, like quite often. For me, I don't know if I really experienced a dark night of the soul during my awakening. I think when people say that, it essentially means like that process of unlearning and shedding can be extremely painful.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Especially if your life is very kind of, you realize it's unaligned with what you're now learning.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't fit the same. And so there can be like a grieving process around having to let things go, or grieving for, I should have done this, or why didn't I do this, or wanting that time back. So I think to me, that's what it would mean when somebody had said they had a dark night of the soul.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, to be honest, I haven't heard the term dark night of the soul.
I think it's an Eckhart Tolle
thing.
Yeah.
And that it just talks about that like period of time when it's difficult,
that it can feel like that. It can feel like parts of you are literally dying. Like the ego, the death of
Ego.
the ego. And so that would just cause that confusion, perhaps.
Right.
Now,
Turbulence on a plane.
yeah, turbulence. Now, for me, I think it's important that's like kind of talked about, so people know, okay, I'm like not going crazy. Like I am feeling this shift, and I'm feeling all this stuff falling away, and I'm changing, and I'm grieving, and I'm having to let go of, previous mindsets, behaviors, relationships, jobs, whatever it is.
Yep.
But it doesn't always have to be like that. And that's what I want to share too. I don't think I really experienced that per se. Like I didn't go through a deep and dark depression or anything like that during my spiritual awakening.
No, I'm trying to like even think of when
when you would say that happened to you.
When my spiritual awakening was, because it's interesting because, I mean, I would say I've had a few.
I think that's important to talk about
that,
too.
Yeah. Because this is interesting too, because I wouldn't necessarily say that being a medium automatically was my spiritual awakening. That shift of when I decided to become a medium, oh, I'm awake now. I think it happened actually like when I was quite younger. But I don't know does that sort of fit with how maybe you're feeling too about your own spiritual
but it
awakening?
also kind of poses a question. It raises a question for me. Do you feel that if somebody is a medium, then they have gone through a spiritual awakening, or could you be a medium without having gone through that?
Ooh,
I know. That's
Amy getting with the tough question. I would say, wait, what are you going to say? Should I go first?
No, I want you to go. I want
3, 2. I think that you definitely can be a medium and not have a spiritual awakening. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Because what does spiritual awakening mean? It means you're shedding the ego, whatever, letting that go. And then I think maybe you can still be, it's like you can still work your job.
Yeah.
Right. Without.
And maybe somebody's profession might be a medium. Right. And they could believe in and genuinely communicate with spirit, but it doesn't mean that they've shed ego, I certainly haven't shed my full ego, and I would say that most of us have not. I think it's those mystics, and like I'm reading Be Here Now by Ram Dass.
Alex has that book.
Yeah, this is a person that probably was able to shed their ego. But I think for most of us, it will be a kind of a lifelong process.
Yeah, I agree. As you said his name, in a little bit now, my ears were ringing like pretty.
It's been all about him lately. I've got all the books. Look at this one, Being Ram Dass. I'm obsessed with him right now. I'll loan this to you. This is an amazing book. This is a biography.
Oh, it's his biography. There's it's super short. If you and other folks are interested, there's a really short documentary on Ram Dass, and towards the end of his life.
I think I might have watched it already. It was on
really
Netflix?
Yeah,
I watched it a few years ago though, so I might want to revisit it now that I feel more like connected to him through his words, because this is literally his journey from childhood all through his years as being a professor, his LSD research.
Yes.
Moving in. So right now I'm kind of at the point where he had been in India for I think 18 months and then has come back because his guru, which I cannot remember his name at this moment, but his guru kind of wanted him to go back to the West to see if he could really implement what he had learned.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And do you know what's really cool?
Alex has it.
Yeah. Well,
the blue one.
That's what the part I'm talking about right now is from Being Ram Dass. But there's a part in this where hi Ted.
Ted's just jumping all over
to visit.
There he is.
His guru, his spiritual teacher that he met in India, he the first time that they were in the same room, that Ram was in the same room as him before he became Ram Dass, when he was Richard Albert. He The spiritual teacher literally like sought him out, looked him in the eye, and talked about his mother, who was in spirit.
Wow.
And talked about details about her body and her health and things that had happened that he would have no way of knowing. So I thought it was really cool, because that encounter was what set the chain of events off for Ram Dass to become Ram Dass. His real spiritual awakening happened
when
from
he
ship reading. Yeah.
And I mean,
thought that
I
was
would
really cool.
That is really cool. I love, that's why I really I love doing this work, because I'm not saying we're giving everybody that comes to see us a spiritual awakening.
There's potential for it.
But I think there's room for it, exactly. And I think if anything, and we've been just saying this over and over, and it's on, I think, both of our websites, because we both read very similarly, that our readings are just meant to offer you a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And part of like spiritual awakening, whatever you'd like to call it, maybe it's not even maybe you're not even calling it a spiritual awakening, right? But part of that is just opening yourself up these new perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely. And there's the potential for that. Like, something that I was talking about just yesterday was on my radar, was about, when I do the higher self readings. And that's interesting, because the deck I chose today to pull for us, you can see all the synchronicities here. The deck that I chose is the only deck I use for my higher self readings. And I want to talk about higher self readings. So when I am connecting to somebody's higher self, there's about 5 or 6 questions I specifically ask and then channel about. And one of those things is about your energetic frequency. So it's like the things that go unsaid about you, just like your energy, without like when you walk into a room and you don't even know anything about this person, and you haven't even heard them open their mouth, but it's like, need to go there. Yeah. And it's not like an attraction, like a physical attraction. It could be, but it's more something else.
Yeah.
or we might have experienced the opposite, where it's like, nice person, but for whatever reason, just not for me. Right. And that's like the frequency, the energy of each of us that we have. And what I truly feel and believe is that this frequency, we attract the people that we're meant to attract, that we can potentially open a door for, or help with their spiritual growth, or any sort of life lesson growth. And then there's also people that we're going to naturally repel. And it's been freeing for me to really realize this, because it's not a personal thing. It's just an energy. So like, you're not going to be everybody's person. Some people are going to be naturally repelled by you, and that's okay. Right. And when we just focus on the ones that are naturally gravitating towards us, that's all we really need to do. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that relates to this a little bit, because I think sometimes the awakening process is also about learning that, like, you don't have to be everybody's everything. Like, I feel like the process of awakening is coming to me in this moment, is the process of belonging to self. Yeah.
It's like a feeling of coming home. Yeah,
absolutely. That's been a big one for me in my own awakening process. I can't pinpoint either when I think that happened. For me, I think it was a gradual, like, over life, little tiny shifts.
I would say similarly.
Because I think that we've talked, like, we've always kind of been somewhat spiritually minded, like, since childhood. So for us, I think it's been gradual, a little awakenings over time. For others, it might be they never felt that connection or had that feeling about spirituality. And then all of a sudden it was like, boom, like, maybe if it was that case, maybe then the dark night of the soul would make more sense for those people.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Exactly. I mean, and that makes sense. It's like I went through my own, spiritual awakening when I went back to college for social work. Right? Because that is all about, you learn about systems and structures and, all of the isms, right? Like
Mhm.
you're doing all the work to unlearn, previous societal, um, constructs, or the way that society has, taught you previously. You're learning and shedding all of that stuff.
Mhm.
And that for me was like a really huge shift and a really big learning curve. And I would say like, I definitely feel like maybe I had a dark night of the soul then, a lot of guilt and all these things that
Yeah,
come
maybe,
with feeling
and maybe
things.
that's what that means, right?
Hmm.
Is that guilt or the woulda, shoulda, couldas, or the
Yeah. Or
doubt
like,
and the
oh my
fear.
God, you're
Yeah.
thinking of all these things. And
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
just, I think really for me, I think what it comes down to a spiritually awakening moment is those moments where you feel maybe, and maybe they're small and maybe they're big, like we were saying, but that like big shift, it can be that big shift that happens in your life where all of a sudden it's like the lights turn on
Yeah.
and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe I was asleep for a little bit and now I'm awake.
Yeah. Like I often use the, analogy of like running on the hamster wheel of life.
Yeah.
Thinking awakening,
Yeah.
and then you're either gonna like step off yourself or you're gonna get flung off, right? But
Yeah.
it's when you get off the wheel. Yeah. But I love that visual. I can
Yes.
just see a hamster like flying
No,
across
no,
the
no, 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 no. And then just,
yeah,
yeah, going,
yeah,
going, going.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what a dark night feels
It
like.
feels like too fast on a hamster wheel.
Yeah. One thing that's coming through to me in this moment is just about like through that process of shedding,
Mm, yeah.
unlearning, as you process, things in your life and go through all those doubts and fears.
Hmm.
You're shedding and clearing out a lot of pain
Yeah.
in your physical and
Hmm.
spiritual, emotional, mental,
Hmm.
everything. So I think one thing that wants to come through very spontaneously in the moment is about how important it is to take care of yourself, like emotionally and mentally and emotionally, especially
Hmm.
during that time. Like you wouldn't want to like really put yourself into tremendously stressful environments during that time where you're going to like
Yeah.
add more pain on, like, because you're kind of trying to shed a lot of discomfort.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
kind of going through this process, I just feel like you need to hear in this moment, you, the listener, that it's okay to prioritize yourself during this process. It's okay to prioritize yourself all the time, but during this process is especially important.
Hmm.
I was reading another article earlier today that said, sometimes we can think of when we go through that process, we're being reborn. So the little bit afterwards, whether it's a few months or a year, you can kind of think of yourself as a newborn.
Hmm.
So you really need that
Mm.
extra love and compassion and care for yourself.
Yeah.
And if you don't have somebody that understands that process, or you just don't have anybody to help you through that process, then I just feel as if you need to hear that you can like parent yourself, you can mother yourself in that
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nurture your own
that's
self.
what you need. Yeah,
I
and
just,
be okay with that.
yeah,
Because I think there's a
exactly.
lot of hangups with that too, like with
Yeah.
taking it easy, or with, I'm just being lazy, or like whatever it is, or I can't ask for help. Like it's very hard. It's resistance, but that's part of the stuff you're shedding.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
always say, because I, for myself, it was hard for me to even, and I think, some of this is making me think of like therapy sessions, that I've
Yes.
had, and like beginning my own healing process by going to therapy. And I know that it can be really tough to even like make that step.
Hmm.
Right. And so like I always say, like, even if you are searching it and you send that email, good for you. That's it.
That's a major step.
That's a
Yeah,
really
that
big
comes through
step.
sometimes for me too. Like the awareness is half the
Mhm.
battle. Like if you have
Yeah.
the awareness
Mhm.
that, oh, maybe I should go to therapy, that's
Mm.
half the battle. And then you take the
Yeah.
next step, you book the appointment,
Yep.
you're almost done. Like you've done all the hard stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you.
Okay.
As we're talking, I'm wondering if, and what's what I was just like coming through to my mind is like, do you think part of the journey here as souls, our whole life is a spiritual awakening?
Yeah, I think it's a process of awakening. I feel like, like when I picture kind of life, sometimes I picture like a path, and like there's crossroads and there's different avenues we can take. And I think there's always an opportunity, especially in our challenges,
Yeah.
to choose a different path, and to choose the road less traveled for you. And this can be just based on your own life experiences, or the way you were raised. It could be
Yes.
ancestral stuff that runs through the line. The minute you make a choice, I'm going to do something different than I have before, or than everybody else has before me and my family.
Yeah.
That's awakening, right?
Yeah. That's part of that.
I think so.
Yeah.
So I think every time you kind of veer off and you go, yeah, I know I did it this way before, but that doesn't feel right to me anymore. And I don't know why. I'm not going to sit and dwell in it and doubt it. I'm just going to do this. I don't know why I feel like I want to do this, but I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Breaking cycles,
Yes.
starting anew. Yeah. Because I'm like thinking about just like, life. What does that mean? It means it's, what does that mean? Being here, what is our purpose? There's so many of these questions, right, that come through, and we've had these discussions before. And like I think we've come to like the same consensus that like part of our journey here is just to, do the unlearning and learning and grow. And I think because part of that is when we kind of go through that process, it's almost like we're being, because I don't look at as death as like the end. I look at it as a transition.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's almost like we shed this part of ourselves and we make way for this other new part of ourselves when we transition, for more learning and more growth to happen. So like, I don't know if any of the stuff that I'm saying is making sense, but
no, it does. And it reminds me of karma, like my understanding of karma with cycles and patterns. And, I also have an understanding from the work that I've done. And I feel like you agree that the more we kind of shed and clear away, whether it's, old patterns and limiting self-beliefs, or even if it's just literal physical stuff that's kind of in our space, that when we're trying to make room for something else, we need to clear it in order to make room for something else. Yes. And so when I think of kind of that transition to the next, it's like, okay, so have you shed as much as you could? Have you cleared away enough of the old so that you're ready for something new, right? It's like a level up almost. And I feel like when we stay on the hamster wheel of life, then we just get more of the same the next time, I feel.
Yeah. And then it's sort of almost, whenever that transition or whenever that growth happens, right? It's almost like it's gonna happen no matter what, right?
Yes.
So it's almost like you can either go with it or you can swim against it. But if you swim against the current, it's gonna be harder.
This just came up in a client reading yesterday. Like literally it came up, and it's like, she was very like spiritually of spiritual mind, like she was quite spiritual herself, but it kind of came up like, we've got to learn it at some point.
Yeah.
It might as well be in this lifetime with the awareness that we have, because we have to do it anyways, right? So
rip the Band-Aid off.
Rip the Band-Aid off, save the time from having to do it again.
Yeah.
In a different body, in a different life.
Don't go into the shower and, wait for the water to come down, and then you pull the Band-Aid out, just rip it off.
Just rip it off. Yeah. But you got to be ready for that too. Like you can't.
Exactly. Yeah.
I feel like though, when you get to the point where you have, because I feel like awareness is, like I said, half the battle. When you get, because the awakening is the awareness. It's the awareness. Oh, there's something different.
Yes.
That's what the awakening is. So I think once you get to that point, it's like, you do want to rip the Band-Aid off. Like it's so uncomfortable now that you've got an awareness, but it's like the hamster is on the wheel, but knows it can get off. Right.
Yes.
And that is worse than being on the wheel and not knowing there's another
option. Knowing.
Yeah. I love that.
I love all of these analogies.
Me too. This is
These
how I
visuals.
understand things. So spirit always gives me those because they're like, I
Yes,
get it.
I'm
It's
very
a real
visual.
image.
I'm very visual as well. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah, for sure. So, I think during this process of spiritual awakening, which, like we said, we both feel like it's kind of a lifelong process. And just when you think you know what you got to know, then you go
Something
through.
else comes out.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
a lifelong thing.
Mhm.
Relationships can potentially change or
Mhm. Mhm.
end during times like this. I don't know about you, but like not even in spiritual awakening kind of through that lens, but just I've witnessed so many relationships over the course of my adult life where a partner will change something in their life, whether it's they want to go back to school or they do some sort of big diet exercise program and lose a bunch of weight, or like whatever it is, they do something different.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the other spouse is kind of like, whoa, like, who are you? You're the
Mhm.
same person I married 10 years ago. And the relationship sometimes
Yes.
dissolves.
Yes. Yes.
And I think for me, how I understand that is like there's a like an energetic like yin and yang, like a balance. And
Mhm.
it can become like this when one person's kind of growing maybe at
Yeah. Oh,
a
yeah.
level than the
Yeah.
other. And it's not really like a blame thing. Like I think it's
No.
just,
Exactly. It can be with partnerships, it can be with
yeah,
friendships, it can be with
family.
family,
Family's a big
right?
one, right?
Family's huge, huge.
Mhm.
You're constantly, we're all individuals. We all are,
Yeah.
we interpret things differently, we internalize things differently, we understand concepts, differently, right? And so I feel like if it's all about, how are you going to maybe, I don't know, work together or like being at different points in your lives, but also being almost in, having to again work together, be in sync. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
know
that, yeah.
family is something that comes up often when I talk to
Mhm.
clients and stuff about this particular
Mhm. Mhm.
kind of topic. And it's very difficult when you kind of identify maybe as the cycle breaker, and
Mhm.
what I mean by that is, oh, I have an awareness that there's some sort of pattern or cycle that runs through everybody in my family and like everybody that's come before. And it's been in my life too. And I don't want it anymore. And I'm here
Yeah.
to like do something different.
Mhm.
That can be kind of, I would assume it could be quite jarring
Jarring.
or disruptive to other members of the family who's like, well,
Mhm.
who are you? Like, who do you
Yes.
think you are? Like,
Yes.
you're like
Yeah.
us. Like, why are you doing something different?
Especially because there's power dynamics in families,
Yes.
depending on where depending, are you the child, are you the mom, or where are you the sibling, where are you?
Yeah. Like when you get yourself off the hamster wheel and the rest of your
Mhm.
family's still on, that could be potentially like triggering. It can cause
Mhm.
a lot of stuff,
Mhm.
like, and I've
Yeah.
found this time and time again where it's hard to like relate, and also I feel like when you go through an awakening process, or like I said, kind of like finding yourself again, belonging to self again, you figure out, I feel like the process of awakening is to figure out who am I really
Mhm.
and what do I want and or need.
Yes.
And it becomes near intolerable.
Mhm.
Like once you honor yourself that way, like once you commit to yourself that way, it's almost intolerable to go back to what was,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so I feel like we've talked about boundaries before. I feel like boundaries are a huge thing.
Yes.
Um, I've had things come through in readings where it's like, it's okay for you to distance yourself from the rest of your
Mhm.
family. Like that's
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
That was like a loved one in spirit came through to say that to my client about the rest of the family, like it was kind of like, it's okay. Like you don't have to feel
Yeah.
guilty for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've gotten that from just like spirit, I think so it depends. Everybody is different. Our families are so different, but
Yeah.
you might feel different things, from that shedding or from putting up those boundaries. It can be really difficult, um, and not everybody can understand that when you put up those boundaries, that those are boundaries that you've put up,
Mhm.
right? And again, people internalize things, and I always
Yes,
say to people, you can only control how you perceive things, and
that's right.
you can't control how they're going to react. You
Yep.
can't control what they're going to do. So do the best that you can in that,
Yeah. Yeah.
scenario with whatever you're going through. And I know it's really, even though it's super difficult, right? Um, but boundaries are so important,
Absolutely.
even
Yeah.
just for your own sanity or your own your own personal
Yeah.
space, right? Like,
Yeah.
again, and this goes back to, like, I think we've talked about this before, but like our bodies are such good barometers of, like, right, if your boundary is being crossed, you more
Feel
than
it.
likely are
Yeah.
going to feel it in your body.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That was a spiritual awakening when my therapist said that to me. I was like, you're right, that is profound. you know
You know what?
for
And
me to
it's
say
funny
that,
because
but
it's
it's true.
something that I've just recently learned too, because I think like we've spent a lot of our spiritual like journey, um, at least consciously
Hmm.
in
In our
the
head,
in the
up.
mind and in the heart, right? It's
Yes.
like that kind of connection. And so I often will wait, sometimes for clarification that way. Like I'll wait till I hear something or whatever. But I have recently just been reminded, no, you can go back to your gut. Like
Yeah.
truly your
Yeah, your
gut. Like I
body.
know you rely on all this and you're pretty good at it now,
Yeah.
but your stomach still won't lie to you. So, you can you can trust that right away. You
Hmm.
don't need to then wait for confirmation up here. Um yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. And in
Yeah.
saying, like, with your, with whatever spiritual awakening or whatever you'd like to call it for yourself, whatever growth you're going through, if there is conflict in any area and you have to put up those boundaries because
Have
things
to.
have changed, that's okay. And it's also okay for you to take a step back from the situation and just, wrap yourself around the folks that will support you and continue
Yeah.
to, you know, just show you love. Because ultimately, like, I don't know, I'm just thinking back to, like, my own family, and the ebbs and flows, that come with family, right, through the change in, like, just relationships. And because when you grow up and all of a sudden you realize that your parents are people and that
People.
they make mistakes, and
People. Yeah.
that's part of the, I don't know, awakening, or that's part of the growth, I think, that also happens, for us as people. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I
No, it's okay.
you
I
know
literally just said something today. I was talking to somebody, we are talking about relationship with our
Yeah.
fathers, and I've talked about that before, my father's in spirit. And
Mhm.
I said, something that I learned is that we all do the best that we can with what we have at that
Yeah.
time. And there's freedom in knowing that. I think on the other side of the spiritual awakening, after you go through all the growing pains and the shedding, not to say it's you're ever fully on the other side, but I feel like you get a little lull in between awakenings. But when you get into that lull,
Spirit's like, you need a break.
I'm just gonna give you a little break for a minute.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like these are the kind of insights that can come from a spiritual awakening. Like, okay, my parents were just people, just like me. Nobody teaches you how to parent. Everybody does the best they can with what they have. And I know forgiveness is one of these things that can be triggering. And certainly, maybe 5 years ago, I would have been triggered by somebody that would say this to me, like
Yeah.
your parents do the best that they can with what they have. I'd be like, well, that's not good enough. Like maybe one of you
Mhm.
are saying that, right? And I certainly understand that, but I have found the freedom in knowing that at like a soul
Mhm.
level, from like connecting to my own father in spirit. It's never truly about the capacity for love, I don't think. It's
Yeah.
just in how we express it, and everybody's, yeah, it's so much conditioning and
So
all
much. It's
kinds of
and
stuff.
that's why we come here on this, like, planet. The world is like the toughest. I've always felt that, when
I
we
think
come
so.
to Earth, it's
The
the hardest place to come to learn these lessons.
I think, yeah, I would
Right?
100% agree with you.
It's so
Yeah.
hard. It is. It
Hard.
is. It is.
Because if you think that you are, because we're all spirit in physical vessels, if you think about what spirit is, pure love, right? Pure love, acceptance, belonging. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm in this, meat suit. I'm separate than everybody else. Everybody's fighting all the time. Everybody's separate, right?
What is this? Yeah.
What is it? So for me, the spiritual awakening is like letting go of all that earth stuff.
Yeah.
While you're still here on earth, it's really important
Yes.
that you still are a part
Yes.
of, this is something that we can lose sight of as spiritual people, right?
Come back a little bit.
Back. Yeah. We can't just stay there in the spiritual world all the time.
Yeah.
Because then we kind of miss the point of our own journey.
You can lose sight of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I have to remind myself of that sometimes, like, Amy, yes, you came here to reawaken and remember who you are and what the point of all this is. But you still have, hopefully another 40, 50 years in your body here on earth. And you need to be here on earth. Like, that's why you're here.
That's why you're here.
Yeah. That's why you're here. So
yeah.
I hope this helps. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's a good reminder.
It's a good reminder.
Yeah. And just, I think it's important, like part of, we've said it time and time again, like part of our mission statement is to bring all this back down to earth and make it more relatable. I think when we talk about a spiritual awakening, it can kind of seem like one of those other, like, what does that mean? And it's, language is a huge thing in general, in society. In the spiritual community, I think it's very important. Language is something that can be very othering. So we have to be very careful about our language. And I think that's why we like to break things down. Like, what do we actually mean by the dark night of the soul? What do we actually mean by spiritual awakening? Because you might not call it that. Yes. You're going through it, right?
Yeah.
This is why it's like, I don't necessarily think that you have to feel as if you're like part of the spiritual community to go through a spiritual awakening.
No. And this came through like in another reading the other day, that it was like, Spirit kept wanting to talk about just like spirituality, and they were like, I don't want to talk about this, right? But spirituality doesn't mean, we all sit there and sing Kumbaya.
I was going to say Kumbaya.
You're going to say, yeah. Right? If your spirituality is like, I'm going to go out or whatever, I'm going to listen to heavy metal music, I'm going to, I don't know, whatever it is. I don't really know what.
What does belonging to you mean?
What does belonging,
happiness mean?
Happiness, bringing it back within. How do you center yourself? Like, that's it. That's it. You don't got to go out and buy,
crystals and cards.
And,
you don't have to. You
don't have to.
No. Yeah, I think that's so important because, we have cards and all this kind of stuff, but these are,
that's us.
Like them. They're tools for us. We like to use them, but you don't need them on your spiritual journey. Like, these are requirements.
No, we don't need these cards. They're tools. They're tools that, we feel like help us connect, but also that they're really pretty. And I like having nice cards. And they're addictive. And they're pretty. It's like when I go to the, wine place or the liquor store, right? I am looking, sometimes I don't necessarily get the wine that's the nicest, or, I just like the bottle. I get the pretty bottle. So I got the pretty tarot cards.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. But yeah, just to kind of reiterate as we move on, and do a little energy forecast, a little reading for you with cards. Take care of yourself on this process, whatever process you're on. If you call it spiritual awakening, if you don't, I feel like we can, it's the word unifying. I think it is. We are all here doing the same thing in different ways. We are all trying to remember who we are. The reason when I pulled this card is because it literally says remembering who you are on it.
we're all trying to do that. That is the goal of everything. We're all trying to do it in different ways. And it's harder for us to do that on the hamster wheel, which why it's easier to step off, but it can be jarring.
It can be.
It can be a lot. I would, if you're like somebody that is maybe just kind of new to this and doesn't feel as if they've done a whole lot of spiritual development, I would honestly encourage you to do it like slow and steady. You don't need to rush this process. You really don't, because I also believe in divine timing. So I believe that things, you're never given more than you can handle at any one time. That's the leveling up, right? That's why, okay, Erin got through this mini spiritual awakening. We gave her a break. Here's a new one. She wouldn't have got that if she hadn't done the one before, because she wouldn't have been ready for it.
Yeah.
I think that's important too, to not feel like you have to rush the process.
No.
It's
and
not a race.
No, exactly. No. And even if you're like, I'm not ready to go there, it's still going to be there for you.
Yeah. I think that's important. For anything though, I don't think anything that is truly meant for you, I don't think you will totally miss out on it. It will find you. Have you noticed that in your life? Where you feel you miss an opportunity or something and then it somehow shows up again?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, I was
later with your school?
With my schooling, or even there was a family and they had when I was doing placement, I did my placement at the school, and there was a family with an autistic child, and they wanted me to be their work one-on-one with their child. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for it. And I always thought back to that moment of God, I really wish I took that opportunity. But look, here I am. I'm working with the autistic community. Yeah.
And you probably feel more prepared for it because of what you've done in that intern. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And again, I feel like that is another piece of this spiritual awakening, is that trust. That trust in it's like knowing the interconnectivity of everything and trusting in the divine timing and not feeling like you have to rush and force.
No.
It's honestly, we're still going through it. We will be going through it for the rest of our lives. But from where we stand right now, wherever that is on the spectrum of awakening, there's freedom here.
Yeah.
There's freedom here.
Yeah. And I think we're not saying that if the hamster wheel is spinning fast and you get flown off, you're necessarily going to have a bumpy ride.
No, exactly.
It's not going to necessarily be difficult. And so if you want to keep going, you keep going. It's okay.
Oh yeah. You listen to yourself and I just don't want anybody to ever feel like they should be further along than they are.
Because no, we're all unique.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. And that goes for a profession too, with well, how come, I'm here in my practice and somebody's there, or, whatever it is. It's
don't compare yourself.
Yes.
We all do it. I've done it. I still sometimes catch myself and I'm like, Erin, stop it.
Yeah. But that's all this is. But that's the awareness where you're like,
yes,
it's not that you never go to that place of ego again, right?
Or no, because it's part of you.
Right. It's part of you. You're never going to get rid of it. If anybody claims to have no ego,
be skeptical.
Be skeptical.
Don't trust them. Speaking of trust, I'm just kidding.
Have an ego. It's part of you. The awakening process is the awareness of I don't have to let that define me.
Yes.
I don't have to listen to that. It's almost like a defiant child, right? It's no, I'm not doing that.
I'm not going to do it. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. You want to go ahead? Do you have your card ready?
I don't. Hang on.
Okay.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. I do now.
Okay, you go. I felt for whatever reason you should go first.
Okay. So I'm pulling, this is a bit, the deck is dirty. Please don't judge me, YouTube. Okay. It's called the Goddess. I've had these for a while.
I love old worn-in decks.
Right?
They're very well loved.
Yeah. They're the Goddess knowledge cards. I haven't used these in a while, but they're so beautiful. Look at these images.
Yeah, I've never heard of those before.
Oh, I like this Spider Woman, she's called. She's beautiful. Anyways, okay. So I pulled Psyche. So, and it tells a little bit about the story, and it's going to tell us who this goddess is. So it says the story of Psyche tells of a mortal woman taken to a mysterious castle to be married to a fierce dragon. Her husband comes to her in the middle of the night, and she falls in love with him. Told that she must never look upon his face, she disobeys this injunction and finds that her husband is really Eros, the god of love. When he awakes, he flies away, leaving her forever. Psyche roams far and wide trying to find Eros. She goes to his mother, Aphrodite, who gives her 4 tasks to complete, each seemingly impossible. The final task requires her to descend into Hades and retrieve a box of beauty. Through this process of meeting the challenges of her tasks and integrating her experiences, Psyche grows from an innocent young girl into a mature goddess. This is cool. Psyche is a rich reminder of our I love it. I love it. I don't know why I'm going to cry. Of our imperative to grow. She reminds us that the process of life takes us into the dark places as well as light.
There you go.
Just as the butterfly emerges from the dark chrysalis into the light.
See, this is why we like cards.
Like, come on, I can't make that up.
Yes.
This is this.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And I'll show the image.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, she's holding shells. She's got these wings. And almost like bird. She looks all bird-like.
So like the growth is through the challenges as well.
The challenges.
Yeah, it's both.
That we have to,
it's
yes,
both.
That even though we go into these like dark places, maybe the ego, whatever that looks like for you, these challenges, that there's light as well, and that it is a good reminder that a butterfly isn't just a butterfly. It takes time. It goes from a caterpillar to a butterfly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Ooh, okay. I'm excited for what you pull, Amy.
No. In this book.
Whoa.
I know.
Ram Dass?
Yeah. Butterflies.
Ram
Basically talks about that, right?
Maybe he's
I swear, well, when was it? Maybe it wasn't on the air, but when we did the interview with Brandy and I pulled one of his cards, Ram came out.
That's right. Because I was like, didn't we talk about him before? And it was with Brandy. Okay.
No, I don't know, but like there's something about him right now. I don't know if I'm like, are you here, Ram? Like, I don't know, but like there's something.
Well, this whole podcast, I have had like, I don't know, the chills, and my house is pretty the warm. Temperature is normal. So
amazing. Okay. So if Ram is here, we would like him to come through. Testing. Ram. Okay. Soul Star activation. This beautiful card. Again,
the bird.
The bird, yeah.
Eagle.
Yeah, I don't know which it reminds me of a hawk, but it could be an eagle. Fulfilling soul contracts and remembering who you are.
Shut the front door.
I know. So it says the soul star chakra is the energy center that is found around 6 to 12 inches above the crown and connects us directly with soul wisdom. So this is like higher self kind of stuff. It is our gateway to the etheric realms, which hold all the lessons of all the incarnations that we have experienced, otherwise known as the Akashic. Through our soul star, we access information and wisdom like a computer, connecting to the internet through broadband. Instead of having to move through the dimensions to access the information, we can remain connected at all times and download support as necessary. You said Eros, right? This is Horus. So the Egyptian god Horus appears on this card as our spiritual guide. His hawk-headed image is said to illustrate his connection to the sun, moon, and stars. As a keeper of energetic portals to hidden realms, he can help us remember our starry origins, open psychic vision, and connect directly with the wisdom that is held in the stars. So it says, through your previous journeys, you have learned much about the inner workings of your soul and about the cycles of karma.
Buzzword.
I know. Before this incarnation, you set a powerful intention to remember You're divine. What did I say? This is the whole purpose.
Yeah, this is the whole
Just
thing.
to remember. At this point, you are in a powerful space for you're remembering who you truly are, and you know that you have it within you to make a great difference in your lives, in your life, the life of others, and of course, the world. This remembering is in alignment with the soul contracts you made before coming to this realm. If you find yourself worrying if you're making the right decisions, know that even if you aren't conscious of it, all that you have chosen so far is in accordance with your soul's evolutionary plan.
Wow.
Divine timing, right?
Yeah.
I love how the cards validate me.
Look at this.
And when you draw the gateway, you're opening up to higher levels. There you go.
And I think it's like almost every
yes,
podcast
people
we do,
are like,
we say
they
the
must
same
be
thing. Yeah. But I hope the folks listening and watching, I hope you guys love it, because I
love it. I love how every single time we do a card pull at the end of every episode, validates the whole episode, like almost word, like those key words in it.
Cute.
I just think it's amazing. And
karma, like, yes. What?
And remembering who you are.
Dark, like what? Yeah.
If there's one message, yeah, it's similar, right? Because I think the process of remembering who you are, you have to be, the earthly realm, the darker, which is what your card was kind of talking about. It's almost like a blending of the two, right? Which is what we are. We are a blend of the two.
Like, well, and we go through this, the learning, and the part of the learning here is that growth that comes with, like, part of the learning is all of the things that we've just sort of talked about, right? And it's not always going to be easy, and it's not always going to be amazing sunshine, rainbows and all that stuff. You're gonna go through really tough moments, and it sucks. It sucks.
Yeah. And it never stops sucking.
It never stops sucking, right? But it's about how you learn from that, right? How you handle that situation, whatever that may be, and how you grow with it.
It's something that I repeat to myself. I think Erin and I are pretty good about, sharing both sides, especially in our social media. Like, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And I think that we do come across as, having real lives with challenges as well. But so when I'm kind of in that dark place, whether it's I'm feeling in a kind of low mood, my anxiety's high, or going through a depressive kind of episode, or grieving, I always tell myself, it's right now, but it's not for good. And I always remind myself that I'm feeling it right now, but it's not forever.
Yes.
It's not forever. I'm not going to feel like this forever. It's right now. It's not forever. And I consciously tell myself that, and it instantly kind of lifts me a little bit out of that. Allow myself to feel all that, because we can't bypass that. That's a thing. Spiritual bypassing. Maybe we should talk about that in a future episode. I think
that would be really good. Yeah.
We can't bypass life.
No,
we can't. That actually is counterintuitive to the
spirit doesn't spirit doesn't want us to.
No,
you don't want to.
You don't want to either, because then you're gonna be like, oh, I didn't learn all those lessons. Oh, now I have to do them again. Great.
Yeah, just do it while you're here.
Yes.
That's what I have to keep reminding myself. I'm like, I'm going to just do it all here. I don't want to do it again. I don't want to repeat some lessons. We're going to learn it all here.
I think that's powerful, though, because I don't know about before, like sometimes I can still be a little bit of a procrastinator. Like sometimes it's pretty deeply ingrained in my personality. But I've also, as I'm peeling back the layers of my own stuff, I'm realizing that I self-sabotage myself a lot. And the procrastination is the self-sabotage. It actually stems from, I want to be perfect, and I want this to be perfect. And I can't guarantee that. None of us can. That's the big thing. Like, nobody can. So why aren't I just so I just give up. I'll just not do it because of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why I
It
think
won't be
this
this,
work.
so why would I
Yes,
do it?
exactly.
Yeah.
Why would I do it? Right? Like when we talked about the other week about the running, it's like, oh, well, I've lost 7 minutes off 10 kilometers. Well, then why would I run anymore? You know, like it's very all or
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
This work in particular, like for me, I almost feel like the spiritual awakenings happening during the process of learning I'm a medium or afterwards, because it's the things that have come through to me and the realization that, hey, I'm an anxious person and I never thought I would be running my own business or being my own boss, because I didn't ever think I had what it took for that because of my procrastination and my tendency to want to avoid certain things. So like it's easier if somebody like gives me a routine and a schedule and I will do that. And then I'm put in this position where this is
you have to
what I'm
make your
doing.
own.
And there's something in me that's like, yes, this is for you, even though it's hard and it's scary as hell, but there's something for you here. Stay with it, stay with it, stay with it. But this job, especially, it's like, okay, I'm an anxious person. I'm a people pleaser. I want to make everybody happy. Okay. I have to sit here and I have to connect for someone, everybody, there's expectations, the expectations and the desire of the client. And I have to be open to channel that information. It used to feel like tremendous pressure to me because I would try to make the reading perfect, but that's me getting my ego in the reading. The best readings I do is when I am completely like, I'm just like, today's going to be a good day. I'm not going to worry about it. Today's going to be a great reading. I'm not going to worry about anything. And it's like a fantastic reading.
Yes. It's so funny you say that, Amy, because part of what I've been doing, and it just came to me, and I know it's spirit, right? But for some reason I had this like instinct of like, okay, I accept that my ego is here, but for now it's just going to be outside. I'm not going to worry about it. Right? I accept that you're here, but I'm just sort of putting you to the side to make way to like channel these messages. And that's something that for some reason I just visualize if I'm feeling like anxious or if I'm feeling like, oh my God, I really hope, I hope every reading is good, but that's the ego talking, right?
I always say that your connection to spirit is not going to make you anxious. Right? That's not the anxiety. The anxiety is the other piece. It's the it's the ego that is trying to control the outcome. And then you feel fear and you get doubt. And then all of those things really play into the reading. But something that I love that. So we just have to be here and trust, and we can prepare as best we can in terms of being well rested and not stressed out and, like out our best for you. But ultimately, it's out of our hands, right? Which is the ultimate, the ultimate like life lesson for an anxious person, right? It's like, okay, but it's worked. And that is the real thing. Like that act of getting to that place and moving through that fear and doing it that was the challenge, right? And me just moving through the fear and moving through the challenge has led to such personal fulfillment. And I feel that about most of our challenges and fears. It's almost like you got to prove to yourself that you can do it. Something's not going to, I know we're going over, but like something is not going to present itself to you if it's not a possibility for you.
Yes.
If it's coming in, it might be like, oh, this is totally not something that I never expected I would be a professional medium for my work, like never. But if it's something's constantly coming to you, there's a reason for it. Right? It doesn't have to make sense to you at the time.
No.
And that's part of the trusting process.
We'll
follow this and I'm just going to see what happens.
That's part of it.
Ends up good. And then you're like, okay, easier to do it the next time. And so on and so on and so on.
100%.
Okay, everyone.
Oh, this was so good. Thank you. Next week, we should say, stay tuned because we are going to have lovely Nikki on, our contest winner for her I was gonna say on air. It is on air.
Yeah.
Reading
on air. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
next week we're doing that.
next week we're doing that, and so that'll air next week. Yeah.
Next weekend, yeah, episode
Right.
31. So stay tuned, or if you're like watching this in the future, go next to episode 31 because we're going to be doing an on-air reading. I'm so
Can't wait.
So
Oh,
excited.
I'm stoked.
I'm
Yes.
stoked too. It's going to be awesome. So we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
If you like what you're hearing, don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast and tune in each week as we dish on all things spiritual.
Don't forget to like, comment on what you would like to hear us talk about next, and subscribe.